tried to fit it in there yet. I think it's gonna be too long. Nope, this is as far as I'll go in. I'm gonna try it in the other car. I think it should fit this one. I haven't tried to fit it in the car seat, this one either. But I think it's, yep, plenty of space. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today I want to show you how to build a portable woodworking workbench. Now I built this workbench to fit on top of a Rigid toolbox, and Rigid is not a sponsor of this channel, nor is it a sponsor of this video. I just so happen to have selected that particular toolbox with wheels. The workbench itself weighs in at 55 pounds, so I can carry it for a short distance if I had to, but the wheels on the toolbox really makes it very easy to move around places. Links to additional details about the workbench, for example, the pop-up bench dock or the flush-mounted bench stop, are located in the description. I want to thank everyone on Twitter who helped me decide to divide this video up into 3 parts. Part 2 is scheduled to be released next week, and Part 3 is scheduled to be released the week after. The complete and free plans for this entire project is available for you to download, and that is scheduled to be released the same time as Part 3. So I hope you enjoyed this project, and please let me know if you have any questions. About half of this bench started off as rough lumber. Some of this lumber have been drying for many years. The most important step is to square off the lumber. So once I have the reference face roughed out, kind of flat, pretty flat, and I have a perpendicular face squared off, pretty square, I'm going to cut this down to close to the final width, maybe a little bit wider on the table saw. That way I don't have to try to square a piece that is bigger than it needs to be. Alright, so once I have one of the large faces flat, I call this the reference face or something. Okay? So I have this face flat. Now I need to check the flatness. I think it's flat, so just take something that's a straight edge and then put it sort of corner to corner. And we can look underneath it. We'll look for light coming in or out of there. Sometimes it can be hard to see. So I'm just gonna tilt that, and you can see that it's a little bit hollow here, and a little bit high at the end. The other thing to look for is twist. So you can look at it and you can probably see a twist if there is one. I think that right here, right this spot, is a little bit high. But to check for twist, you want to use something that's called a winding stick. Now, you can have fancy winding sticks, or you can just use 2 parallel objects. So I'm going to use a ruler and this layout square. This is 1.5 inches wide right here, and this is 1 inch, so you don't need to be the same sort of, I don't know what you call that, height. Okay, so I'm going to place one on one end, and then place the other on this end. So hopefully you can see that this edge is a little bit higher on this side than it is on this side, relative to this line right here. As you can tell by the lens, it's a very humid day today. I think right now it's probably around 92 degrees with, you know, close to 100% humidity, but it's sunny, so that means it's hot. So I'm glad I got these cut. I'm gonna take them inside to the basement workshop. Well, I have to, because I don't think you can see me much longer. So once the weather became more agreeable, I can go ahead and trim all the pieces down to approximately the final size. I left them all a little bit bigger. I took off all the knot holes to make planing a lot easier. I used the reference face and also the thinnest edge, and used that edge as the final thickness of my all the pieces. Depending on the starting materials, sometimes getting to the right thickness takes a while, but just be patient and you'll get there. And then is to square up all the long sides, and then square up all the short sides relative to the long sides. I can't express how important it is
to have all the sides squared, then how much easier your life is going to be with 6 square sides.
So I just squared up the 2 legs, the top, tabletop, as well as the walnut outer frame for the top. And I was going to start cutting the joinery, but I decided to go ahead and get the pedestal foot, I think it's called a pedestal foot, for the bottom squared up as well. For that, I'm going to use this piece of oak that I had roughly sawn. I'm going to cut this in half and then square up the 2 pieces. After that, I'm basically have all the parts that require sort of major joinery squared up and ready to get started on the major joinery.
The idea for the dovetail outer frame stems from my recent study of Oriental furniture. I always space out the tails in a way that cannot be cut with a router. The angle is about 8 degrees, regardless if it is hard or softwood. I do sometimes vary the way I clean out the space between the tails, sometimes with a coping saw, sometimes with a chisel, usually both. After some cleanup, I'm ready to transfer the tails to the pin side. When light is lacking, I use a flashlight to make a good alignment. The knife allows for a very accurate transfer of the tail shape to the pin side. I always cut just inside the knife line. A part of me always worried about loose joints. But as I clean out the tail side and pare the joint to fit, inevitably I trim right up to the knife line.
Sometimes it takes just as long to fit this thing as it does to actually cut it. I'm happy with the gap here, and here, and here. Oh, yeah, there's a little gap there. And the shoulders are really good here, so I'm happy about that. This little nick right here, this is literally like 4 teeth too far. The gap here is a tiny little gap right here. Let me show you from this side. Right here, there's a bit of a little gap here.
One of the virtues of a well-made joint is that when the glue hits the wood fiber expands, fills up the joint, makes the joint stronger, and makes it look as though it's cast out of one piece.
So originally I prepared this piece of 2x4 lumber, planed out on 4 sides, planed it square to use as the top for the bench. But I thought about it. I decided I wanted something more stable and more wear resistant. So I went and I looked for 8-4 white oak, but I couldn't find any, or they were sold out. So I was a little disappointed until I saw some 8-4 cherry. Now cherry is not as wear resistant as oak, but it is one of the most stable woods I can get in North America. Alright, so I got the frame itself clamped up. I'm just going to place this guy where I think it should be. Make sure everything's nice and square. I'm just going to eyeball it because I'm going to cut one side at once. Right, and then just going to check that it's square. Yep. Okay, that's pretty good. Go ahead and make a marking here to let me know how far the tenon should be. Alright, so marking around a piece is a good indication of whether or not you have everything squared up. If it is perfectly square or very close to it, these knife lines should line perfectly. Okay, so the thickness here is about a 1/16 less than 2. So what I'm going to do is I've set my gauge to 1/2 inch. all the way around. So next I'm going to use this as the reference line and lay out a tenon. It's going to be about an inch. It doesn't have to be exact since I'll be making measurements again. Well, I just dented this corner here. I think we'll be okay though. The tenon here are roughed out, they're a little bit fat, and the shoulders here are nice and flat, 90 degrees. So I'm just going to use that, line this up, and use it as sort of the gauge to see where, determine the depth of the tenons on this side. Okay, now I'll make a mark. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these tenons out, and then I'm going to transfer the tenons onto the walnut side pieces here.
The mortises I'm making here are about 1 inch squared. And after locating the center, I'm going to go ahead and chop all 4 sides. And then I'm going to drill this out using a Forstner's bit that's a little bit smaller than the lines I've chopped out.
It's almost a little bit loose. And that's good, because I want to be able to move this thing back and forth, right? Because trying to get these 2 tenons to align with one side aligned to these holes, the other side aligned to these holes, like this, is going to be a little difficult, especially if I want it to flush against this part. So by allowing a little bit of movement in one of the tenons back and forth, it's going to help me align this correctly. And the fatness in this direction is going to allow me to align this flush with the top or flush with some other point. So there's still a little bit of adjustment I can make, either going up or down on the bench. But for now I'm going to start trimming these tenons to get these guys to fit. Gotta be careful because this thing is getting heavy. So as I was assembling this, there was this little gap here, about a 16th or a 32nd inch gap, very small gap. It either came from me mismeasuring something or just playing a little bit too much. So what I did was move the depth of the pin about a 32nd of an inch. So I just moved it down slightly, a little bit at a time till I get this thing squared off, and then cut this out using the chisel, just gradually one side or the other, and then put it back together.